Hi guys, my name is Raquella and I want you to join me for episode 1 of Quantifiably Bitchy, a Hannibal fan podcast by yours truly. Super excited to be here today. I've been kind of planning this out for the past few weeks. I am a new Hannibal. I am fresh meat, if you will. Hopefully you'll be able to feast on my content for months and months to come. I started watching the show a few weeks ago, probably like a month ago now, and I thought, you know, I've got jokes, I've got opinions. I majored in English a million years ago, so I literally went to college to analyze literature for a living, and I started the show, and it was just the perfect combination of hilarious and scary and like just art. You know, like you're just watching something and you can just tell everybody involved really cares about art, literature, media. Do you see my cat? She's going to be a menace this entire time. So I could, re-record these moments, but I think I'm just going to let her be here hanging. Anyway, I digress. So as I was saying, it's just a really beautiful combination of funny and beautiful. And I think as someone who's really interested in the funny of it all, to be able to incorporate something that makes you laugh into something that's also incredibly serious, gory, gross, romantic even, I figure it's just like absolutely worth like biting into and exploring. So that's what we're gonna do. Today we're gonna start with episode 1. I'm going to watch it on my iPad with my headphones, and I'm gonna like talk about, my initial reaction, like as a new fan who's coming into it a million years later. Like it's literally been off the air for 10 years and it seems to still be, getting new fans. And I think that is also really special and cool and worth exploring. So yeah, let's get started. We're gonna start with episode 1, season 1, episode 1, Apertif. I'm gonna put my little headphones in, get everything connected, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And I'm just gonna kind of like watch and pause and talk, and Nova will be hanging out with me too. So by all means, buckle in, get some popcorn. It's free on Pluto TV. Okay, technical difficulties have been solved, I think. Let's get this episode started. All right, Hannibal season 1, episode 1, Apertif. Debuted in 2013. Opening scene to any television show is going to be important, especially that pilot episode. Pilot episodes are kind of funky because in some cases these shows are waiting to be picked up. They're made one and done and forgotten about. So they're not, think of it as like the first pancake, right? It's going to be a little different than the other ones. So they're always super interesting to kind of analyze as their own thing. I know for me, you start off with, Will Graham in this crime scene, and it's very disorienting and very confusing and gets you, I think, does a really good job getting you into like the mindset of Will Graham, right? I don't know where I am. I don't know who I'm talking to. Like, I don't even know who Will Graham is at this point, right? Like, I'm going in cold to the show. So I'm like, is he a murderer? Like, what is he killing people? Like, what is happening? I really love that because, throughout the series, we kind of get this, like, the dichotomy of Will Graham, right? Is he good? Is he bad? Does he like to kill people or not? And so throwing him into this first scene in this shot as the murderer is really good. Excellent. Confusing, disorienting. I struggle getting into new shows. Those first episodes are always hard because it's like, who is this? Where are we? Type of thing. But I do think it lends really well to the theme of Hannibal and just like Will's inner struggle between good and bad, because he is able to put himself in the minds of these people that are not very good. Interesting way to start the show. Big fan. This is my design. We get the famous line. Yeah. So we'll keep watching. I just want to say I really love season 1, episode 1, Will Graham, because he's like just a precious little baby. Like he doesn't know how to dress. He looks like a wet dog half the time. And you just want to like take him in and take care of him like one of his own dogs, right? Like there's this like obvious parallel between, you know, his strays and himself. You know, that's his whole thing is like, oh, I have to pick up strays, you know? I like this like kind of pathetic, broken Will. It also helps that he's like naively straight, and I'm like, I have a chance, you know? So love season 1, episode 1, Will. Very unstable, has no idea who he is. The job just kind of like consumes him and is him. Ugh, so twitchy. We love that. Okay. Will's like, you know, his opening teaching line is like, oh, everyone's thought about killing someone. And I'm like, have we? Like, truly, Will Graham, have we? Or is that just a you thought? Is that just like an inside thought, you know? I don't really think about killing people on a regular basis. I don't know about you guys, outside of like the Hannibal fan fiction and things like that. But no, Will Graham, that might just be like a you thing, because I tend to want to like fight, like I'm like hands swinging. But no, I don't really want to kill people, but continue. I could never be in a classroom with Will Graham. Like I would just be too distracted. The slutty little glasses, like the pants that are always way too high. Please, please. So Lawrence Fishburne, I love him so much. Like, he can't do anything wrong in my book. For me, I was introduced to him through Othello. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, The Matrix. Never seen it, don't tell anybody. For me, it was Othello. Very powerful performance. It's from the 90s. Go watch it if you haven't. If you like Shakespeare, because guess who likes Shakespeare? This gal. So we'll be talking about that probably a lot. But I like that he's just like, hey, tell me about your autism. Tell me the very specific type of autism you have, please. Like, what an opener in a conversation. Okay. He goes with it, and he's like, can I borrow your autism, your imagination? But let's be real. He's like, are you on the spectrum? Help me. No, love Lawrence Fishburne. He brings the perfect amount of ego, I think, to Jack Crawford. Jack Crawford is based off of John Douglas, as I'm sure you all know, who helped kind of head the behavioral science unit of Quantico. You know, he's, you know, in Mindhunter. Thomas Harris, you know, shadowed him to write his Hannibal series. So he is kind of like, he's a straight man, right? So he's like, at this point anyway, he is like the normal one, right? Like he's like your cis het, neurotypical, egotistical FBI agent. So I think that he brings the perfect amount of like attitude to the character and ego while still being like kind of an ass kicker. Because that's one thing about Lawrence Fishburne is he's gonna beat ass in whatever movie he's in. And like, that's another reason why I love him. There's just like such a great range, because it's like Shakespeare. Oh, I'm gonna kick your ass in CSI and Hannibal. Like, I love that. The Matrix, you know, so I think that Lawrence Fishburne brings a perfect combination of like ass kicking and, you know, intellectual charisma to the character. Love that. Obviously, big fan of the gender bend for both Alana Bloom and Freddie Lowndes. No notes. I also love season 1, episode 1, Will Graham, because like, I love a good broken man that's like, I don't want to talk to people. And I'm like, I will fix you, you know? I can fix you. I'm the personality hire. Like, I got you. You can't resist. Oh, I was so scared they were going to kill the cat. And then what happened was so much worse. Like, I think that's another moment when I kind of like locked in, because I'm like, oh God, this cat's going to die. And like, I can't handle it. And then we get the body placed back in the bedroom, which again was a crazy reveal. First of all, 10 out of 10, confusing. I am not someone that's like always really good at like connecting the dots. I don't know what it is about me, like just no pattern recognition in any aspect of my life. But the reveal of like the cat being alive, you're like, oh, phew. And then her being dead in the bed, you're like, oh, whoops. Never mind. Excellent television moment. But also going back to this idea of being like disoriented in this story and like you not really knowing what's going on, putting you in that mindset of Will Graham. Love that. Gorge. You don't really get your footing in this episode. And I think that is incredibly important to just the vibe of the show. And especially as we go, further along, encephalitis, etc., like just this general theme of instability in Will Graham and just like Hannibal in general, the show, but like specifically Will Graham, you really do kind of feel unstable in the plot at this point in this pilot episode. The body just showing up. It was so confusing to me. Because they're like, oh, she's been in there. We were in there earlier. And it was just like, it was a crazy reveal. And I do feel like I was paying attention at that point, being like, oh, okay, this is not going to follow like your classic horror formula necessarily. And the beginning of the season kind of, it changes because we're looking at like murderers that are not Hannibal. We don't know that yet, but. All right, we are back. Back after a commercial break. I always think it's crazy how they handle these crime scenes by just like letting Will like sit in all the blood. I'm like, I was raised watching CSI. Like that was one of my first fandoms. Shout out to William Peterson, who played the first Will Graham. Yeah, they just like have him like standing in the blood, laying in the blood, like playing in it. And I'm just like, Gil Grissom would flip his lid if he saw this happening. So that always makes me laugh. But like, you kind of have to not think about those things because it's a TV show. We have a plot to follow and some points to make to get there. Not everything has to feel exactly correct. I was really curious when I first started watching, like, is there a supernatural element to Will? I think the answer is no. I think he's just like got a really good like photographic memory and, very empathetic, big imagination, all the points that they are always bringing up. But in these early episodes, like I wasn't sure, because I've been, kind of watching Yellow Jackets season 3 in tandem, and it's always like, is it the wilderness or is it just them? And so like I'm in this question, I'm like, is it the wilderness? Like, is he psychic? But that's kind of an interesting element too, just kind of from an outsider, like looking in for the first time. But we get introduced to Beverly in season 1, episode 1, about 15 minutes in. Beverly's my girl. I don't even want to talk about what happens later. We'll get there when we get there. But as far as I'm concerned in this moment, right here and right now, she's living her life. She's happy, whatever. She's alive. The point I'm trying to make, spoiler alert. Anyway, so we get Beverly's introduction, and my favorite part about pilot episodes is these are your first looks at these characters. It's how the show is introducing them. First impressions are really important. They're not the like only thing in a show like this or in any show, because the beauty of television is that you kind of get this chance to grow and adapt these characters and fit them with the actors and things like that. So, it's always interesting to see the intentions that, Brian Fuller and team had when introducing these characters for the first time. What impression did they want to make on you? What first impression? Beverly is my girl. She is me. I am her. It's like between her and Freddie Lowndes, like I find that I am a combination of the two. Like, oh, you're uncomfortable? Oh, Will Graham, you're nervous? No, I don't care. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about with you because I think you're smart and I admire you. So love that about her, that she's like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to be in here. I don't care. You're Will Graham. Let's talk. I just love a loud bitch. I just love a loud bitch. And Beverly is that girl, So, really excellent first way of meeting her. You're like, oh, she doesn't mess around, but then she drops, the antler velvet tidbits. You're like, okay, she's smart. She is interesting. She's bold. Who is this woman? I want to get to know her more. So excellent introduction to my girl, Beverly. One of 3 of the science throuple who also I love so much. We love a good personality hire, especially if they're also good at their jobs. So yes, obsessed with Beverly. Knew immediately I was going to love her because he was like, please go away. And she was like, I'm not even listening to you. I don't care what you have to say. Like, you're talking to me. Welcome to work. Love the science husbands, of course. I mean, we get kind of this similar intro when they're just kind of like barging in with their like ideas and opinions, but they're smart. So it's just like this sensory overload for Will overall, adding to just like his mindset in this first episode. And like Will is such a weirdo in comparison to him. They're like, who is this guy? Oh, and the aspirin. That's true to the book too. It's like like Thomas Harris uses like random brands that I have no idea. Okay. One of my favorite Will Graham things about this episode is that the dogs. I mean, I get really scared when I see a lot of animals on television because I'm like, oh, they're going to kill them in front of me and then I'm going to cry. Because one thing about me is if there's like old people or animals dying on screen, or like, God forbid, they're like trying to save their people, their owners, like I'm done. I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to skip it. Like, can't handle it. So I did Google ahead of time, like, are the dogs safe? Because I was like, maybe this is not the show for me. But we get our boy Winston, our stray, our little Will Graham stray. And he's just like cleaning him, and it's just, I don't know, it's a very precious, sweet Will Graham moment, because I do think a big difference between Will Graham and Dr. Lecter is Will Graham's just like sweetheart. I do think that there are darker sides to him that Hannibal really likes to explore, but I don't think they're the same. It's obvious he's a stray trying to find his other half, whether you believe that's Hannibal or whoever. I know everyone believes it's Hannibal, so it's fine. But, the sleeping with the bed on the floor, in the living room with the dogs. I personally think they should all be in the bed, but whatever. Maybe he has like sensory problems. We'll give it to Will Graham because obviously he freaking loves these dogs. I will say this, his encephalitis, like visions, slap way harder than his non-encephalitis brain. So I kind of respect Hannibal for like being like, let's watch this play out. Because the visuals, the encephalitis visuals, so good. I love a good death metaphor. Who doesn't? It's like the qualification to be an English metaphor. Do you love Christ metaphors? Do you love death metaphors? Loss of innocence, also a really big one. So, I'm here for it. See, we get Lawrence Fishburne punching the board already. There's like this anger in him. He's like so good at playing angry, in a way that's like very sympathetic. I don't know. You're just like really rooting for him. We have the famous bathroom. The Shining bathroom, and Jack is like screams for the guy to get out. Another really great moment where you're like, oh, he's kind of hardcore, but we love the red bathroom. Again, one thing about me is I love color. I love color. I love when it's used deliberately in film and television. M. Night Shyamalan, like that. He is my boy because that man loves color. Nobody worships color more than him. And you see a lot of that in this. And that was another reason I was like, all right, I'm sat. We're going to talk about let's talk about some color theory. Red, obviously a big one. It can, it can mean a lot of things. We all know red, anger, love, passion. And I think, again, it kind of leans into this whole unstable mentality of Will Graham in this first episode. Broken, these like very powerful emotions, because he's obviously driven. This is a man that's so empathetic that he like can't handle all of these intense emotions. Little guy, big feelings. A lot of big feelings we have to work out with Will Graham. I will say, these grandpa pants are killing me. And like, I get it. This man doesn't care about fashion. He probably thrifts all of his stuff at like Goodwill. It's like, oh, you can buy this bag of pants for 99 cents. Will Graham's like, yes, and I won't replace them for the next 30 years. We love an eco-friendly queen. I'll tell you that. Beverly's also really interesting because she is the first like female character we're introduced to straight up. And the women characters play a very interesting role in Hannibal, and not frequently will you see me defending a man. So when I first started watching the show, I was like, what's up with the women? Why aren't there more women? What is their role in this show? Like, it's a very like male-centric show, which is cool. Again, not something I'll usually say, but in this case, I think the gender dynamic at play here is very important. And then we have Dr. Bloom. I think this first scene with Dr. Bloom formed more opinions about Will for me than for her necessarily. I mean, it's obvious she kind of like babies him, but also like doesn't want to get too close to him because she is definitely into him because he's fine. But another thing I like about this show is that we have all these psychologists and doctors and behavioral specialists, analysts, whatever. All of these elevated minds just overanalyzing stuff all day long. It's just, sometimes it's like just too many cooks, you know what I mean? All of these very cerebral people making decisions that they think are best because of research, whatever. Experience, things like that. But everybody has a different agenda and a different opinion. Who's right? So I think Jimmy, Brian, and Beverly for me were a really good realization that the show was going to be funny and that there was going to be kind of a comedic element to it. And I like that we start with the scientists because, they're in the lab all day. They might not be socializing like everyone else. They also might just be a little detached because they see this stuff every day. So I do think it's like one of those things where the humor is kind of appropriate for the setting, even, if it might not feel appropriate to us because we don't work with dead bodies all day. I do also love that the banter between like these three people, this like kind of chemistry that they have. All right, we literally don't meet Hannibal until exactly halfway through the episode. Again, beautiful, Brian Fuller, nice job. We get this dichotomy of Will Graham, right? The first half is just sweet baby Will, and then it's like we're just, oh, he's eating them. Not a smash cut, but like, you cut to Hannibal eating a person, allegedly, right? Again, what's our first impression? What's our first impression of this character? It's very darkly lit. He's dressed very nicely. There's a pomegranate. We love the pomegranate symbolism. English majors, again, if you want to apply to be an English major, you have to appreciate the pomegranate. Because, there is this also like kind of Hades, Persephone vibe between them. pulling you into that dark side for so many months a year, etc., etc. Having to come to hell to hang out because you're bound to me. Love that. So we got Hades, we got Hannibal Lecter, pan up, just watching him eat, very elegant, very short. And that's it. And cut to him giving therapy. And that's kind of how we're introduced to Hannibal. Not a lot of details. Again, you're kind of, I think, expected to kind of feel in the dark if you don't know anything about these characters. I went in with a working knowledge of the Hannibal movies, the Anthony Hopkins ones. I knew they were books, but I had never read them. I am reading them now, so I will be able to give you more opinions of that once I do it. Yeah, so it's like, are you supposed to think it's Hannibal? Is it somebody else? You know, we find out it's somebody else later, but in this moment, if you know only what you know about Hannibal, oh, he eats people, it's like, oh, are we starting off strong with just Hannibal being the killer? Yeah. I will say this. Slobbering into the tissue and putting it on the table is rude. But like, you're in therapy. Maybe be a little nicer. And he can throw it away after. It's just not the craziest offense in my opinion. Oh, he's so bored. Franklin. I want to call him Jacob because of that one movie. I'm terrible with names. You should know that about me now. Requires a lot of memory, a lot of remembering, which I just don't have. Not him thinking Franklin was Dr. Lecter. You know Franklin got bricked up about that. Made him wait in the waiting room. He was like, I'm going to test you. And Jack Crawford, he has manners. So he waits. Okay, do we think he ate the secretary? Because I for sure think he ate the secretary. He's like, oh, she fell in love and went to Europe. Yeah, Europe is code for my stomach. I know I've said this like on Bluesky, but I really do wish we had more Baltimore visuals. It's my hometown, and I think that it's a very beautiful, very unique city. Has a great kind of kitsch vibe to it. But, you know, we also have like the BSO, which he goes to, the symphony orchestra. It has really great art, music. It is really beautiful, like the Canadian scenes, but I can tell for me, I'm like, that's not Rock State Park. But again, a petty complaint. I know, you know, with filmmaking, it is a lot of logistics and mostly logistics, right? Like what location is going to be the best for us to film financially, visually, etc. So maybe if the show ever comes back, Brian Fuller, I'm happy to take you around Baltimore and show you all of the great places that I think Hannibal would love, and maybe some that he would hate. Like, I'm not sure Hannibal would be like a John Waters fan. Not season 1 Hannibal. He's so highbrow. Meanwhile, I love a good trashy moment. Hannibal would eat me. He would be so tired of me so fast. And then we get Hannibal and Will's first introduction. The visitor badge. The giant scarlet letter. We get it on Hannibal too. The big giant scarlet letter, the V. Hannibal has it here, and then Frederick Chilton has it later. But for Chilton, it's especially funny. We'll talk about that when we get there. My thoughts are not often tasty line. That is from the Red Dragon, I was learning. One thing Brian Fuller does really well is take Thomas Harris lines and incorporates them into the show in a way that's fresh and new and might not like be in the same context as it was. But I do think that it captures the vibes, for lack of a better term, but it's like the essence of the characters. You know, you still get that author input who created these characters in a way that still feels fresh and new to a show. And I think that's something that Bryan Fuller does really well, is the adaptation, right? Like, this is not supposed to be like a shot-for-shot remake of the original, and I'm glad. I think those can be boring. I think they have their place, but I do really also like when people push the boundaries of the interpretation in a way that still fits and still feels like the show, but I want to see it made in so many different ways. There's no one way to like make something right, especially in art. Like, come on. I want to see it played out in the different ways, and I think this show is really good at that. So the initial meeting between Hannibal and Will is really interesting because, again, everyone's just seeing him as a subject. He's kind of this angry, little twitchy guy, feeling very fragile, does not want to be psychoanalyzed, right? You won't like me when I'm psychoanalyzed. When he said that, I was like, okay, drama queen. Oh my God. You won't like me when I'm angry. Please. These men are so dramatic in comparison to like the women in the show. That's another one of my favorite parts. It's just like how dramatic the men are, but whatever. I digress. Will and Hannibal meeting for the first time, you know, with Jack as this mediator with the straight man. You know, we get these kind of worlds colliding, the dichotomy of Will Graham. As I said before, you know, he's immediately interested in him because he's like, oh, he can slip into the shoes of anybody. And that's really interesting for Hannibal. A new dynamic for him to play with, a new toy. So I think in the beginning, at least with season 1, episode 1, this is just more of Hannibal just being Hannibal. Like, how can I manipulate the situation in a way that's interesting to me, in a way that I can analyze? Like, he's just like a bored kid playing with his toys, and that just happens to be everyone around him and their emotions. So, interesting first meeting. Will is like clearly irritated with him, doesn't really like him, doesn't like that he's involved. So we start out way over here with the Will Graham Hannibal love story. We eventually get over here, but it is always nice, like, it's always fun when, like, we're just not there yet. I think it's so bitchy that Hannibal, like, immediately was like, I'm gonna piggyback on this shit, and I'm gonna make it way, way worse. Like, you'd think, do we think it's because Hannibal is incapable of, like, being as sympathetic as, like, the Shrike, or do you think he does it on purpose to, like, rub it in their face, be like, yeah, you're stupid, but you're still not gonna find me? I don't know. And Will Graham, he immediately knew. He was like, this is not him. My man. Alive when he cut out the lungs, and then intercutting the shot with the sink in Hannibal's kitchen where he's like chopping up her lungs. Blech. I am not usually a body horror person, despite also loving body horror. I'm very queasy. So some of the scenes in Hannibal, not a ton of them, but some of the scenes freak me out. Not them just like being like, we're dealing with multiple cannibals now, by the way. Okay. Hannibal's kitchen is a lot of fun too in this first episode. We don't see like a ton of it. We just see like these kind of initial shots, but we know he's a surgeon. It's very surgical. It's not very warm like the rest of his house. Not a lot of beautiful art. It is very much like, this is where I operate on my food and people in both, all in between. This Venn diagram is a circle. But it's very much like, this man is a surgeon and he's going to be treating it as such. Lungs on your counter, no big deal. It's not that different than lungs on a surgical table in the OR. I will say, you know, one thing, I love Hannibal's change, right? Like, we all love Will Graham's change too, you know, the slutification of Will Graham. We get the first deer. The deer is so fun because, you know, it gets used in so many ways. Oh, is it the appearance of Hannibal in his life? Is it death? I do think as it goes on, it is like this kind of lot, like, you know, how it gets kind of darker and more like the Wendigo, that it's like the loss of innocence, you know, again, really important classic themes at play here. Yeah. Bro, he literally fed him lungs like fucking the amount of therapy that I would need after like witnessing this horrible crime and also being like incredibly empathetic as a human. And then like Will would lose his mind if he found out he was eating that girl's lungs and enjoying it. And he's like, yum, yummy. Just keep it professional, Will Graham says. And he's like, professional? Let's be friends. I love that Will Graham is like, I don't find you interesting. That is why I love Will Graham season 1, episode 1, because like he's just such an asshole. And like I do love when someone is like, everyone thinks this guy is interesting. Everyone's like, oh, Hannibal Lecter. And it was like, none of this is interesting to me. I always appreciate someone that just like kind of doesn't go with everyone's opinion about how amazing this person is or a person is. I respected Will for that. He was wrong. And that's why Hannah was like, oh, you will. Oh, you will. We love a confident queen. Okay. Hannibal like immediately coming in with the, oh, we're alike, Will. No problems. Nothing wrong with us. No notes. Nothing we could have done better. The thing about Will Graham is I knew a person like this in college, and he was truly insufferable. But I thought he was really cool back then. Mongoose and snakes. Mongoose is a great animal for Will. I love a good mongoose. I don't know if you guys ever saw Ricky Tikki Tavi growing up. They're cute, but they will like pull up to a snake and mess it up. And I think that's a great analogy for Will Graham. Like, yeah, sure, he's this cute little mammal and oh, so cute. Snakes so scary, but no, he will kill the snakes. Don't underestimate Will Graham. I also really like Will Graham because I really like it when a character is paying attention, and like I hate when everybody's in the dark and like nobody can figure it out. It's always really nice when there's one person that's paying attention and saying all the right things. I find it to be very comforting. I find Will Graham to be a very comforting character in that way, that like he will get to the conclusion even if it's not right away. You know, that's why he's in prison for all of season 2. This is so funny to me. Like they go to like search through the records, and the lady's like, I don't know why they're here. Girl, some rules in this house. You're always going to ask for a lawyer. Don't talk to the cops. And a warrant. Hello. Wind chafed. That's such a... Calling Abigail wind chafed is such like a really wonderful way to describe a person. It's not something you hear a lot, but you can picture it. I was so pissed when Hannibal tipped off Garrett Jacob Hobbs. I was like, you little liar. Hannibal knocking those files over. What a dick. I mean, we all know he knew what he was doing. styling the phone with his knuckle. Another nice little detail. No fingerprints here. Garrett Jacob Hobbs has a very cute collection of Pyrex. I have the same Pyrex set at home, here in my house. God, Hannibal pisses me off so much in this first season. I'm like so team Will Graham hating on Hannibal. He's fine. Annoying. He's just such a wrench in the cog, you know? All right, we come back. We get that beautiful Will Graham shot, blood spattered on his face. You know, the 1,000-yard stare. Love that. The nice panning, removing the blood. Again, very disorienting. What is reality? What is, you know, my brain? We get this like really peak grandpa fit. So fun. Will Graham, season 1, episode 1 is so hot. I feel like it's because I'm straight. So like this is for my gaze. Unfortunately, you know, not everything is for me. But I'm like, this is the man I want. I want to fix him. I love this scene. Like Hannibal and Will play really well off each other in this first episode, because like Will's like freaking out with his gun, shoots Garrett Jacob Hobbs 100 fucking times. And Hannibal just like steps over the body and is like, huh, interesting. And then he comes in and is like very surgical precision, and everyone's like, oh, he's a doctor, it's fine. Oh, he worked at Hopkins, right? Like, he's seen some shit. Hannibal is truly like playing The Sims in his life with these people. Poor Will. He would definitely like build Will a swimming pool and take out the ladder. He wouldn't let him die though. He would eventually put it back. You can't kill your food too quickly or it's no longer fun. You know what I mean? Great use of color too. You know, we see red, blue. Blue is really a good one. Blue for police. Blue is a calmer color. This show very much like has kind of like the first Twilight movie. It has kind of like this like very beautiful color palette and filter over it. It like feels like a rainy day, you know? Alana Bloom was ready to throw hands at Jack. She was like, I have one rule. Don't let him get too close. And Jack says, I'm going to immediately break that rule. And I still need his help. Jack Crawford really was like, I'm going to break this man's brain like a glow stick and make it everybody else's problem. For the greater good. Jack Crawford is like so much a for the greater good guy. Where like, I feel like someone like Hannibal would be like, is it really for the greater good? Or are you just being an asshole? Yeah, we kind of get these very early introductions of morality and what that means for these characters, which is, I think, is another really important piece of the pilot. Will Graham is obviously this like very warm moral center of like good conquers all. Hannibal is obviously the opposite. We don't, you know, people don't know that yet, but we kind of see it in this very like manipulative, scientific manner of like just interacting with the world. And then we have Jack, who's like, oh, I'm doing it for the greater good, even though like he is kind of a little self-serving. And then we see them at the end of the episode, a family in the hospital, you know, Abigail, Hannibal, and Will. They might not know it yet, but it is a very clear message of like, it feels like family the way it's shot, her in the center, the dad's on the side, and then the episode cuts. I think, like I said, my favorite parts of the first episode are just how we are introduced to these characters, our first opinions of them, and how that kind of grows and changes as we continue to watch the series. This is not a show that has stagnant characters. They are constantly always growing, changing, lying. The narrator, anyone as the narrator, is not super reliable, right? So that's another, I think, important part as far as you feeling disoriented in this first episode. You don't really know what to believe, who to believe, and like everyone's intentions are not clear. So it gives your brain kind of a lot to chew on for these next episodes, and it makes you, because like we only get a brief moment of realizing that Hannibal eats people, and at the end of the episode we learn that it wasn't him. There are two cannibals at play here, now just one. But I think pilot episodes are really tricky, and I think this one is beautifully done. It does really focus on the initial dynamics and kind of learning these characters and giving you that first impression. Well, I think leaving it very open-ended to interpretation. Gives it a lot of wiggle room. It doesn't put anybody in a box, which is just smart writing, right? You don't know if the show is going to continue to get picked up. You might want to change the trajectory at some point. So it just gives a lot to open up to this world, and I think that is really inviting and delicious and interesting. Yeah, so thanks for joining me for watching the first episode, the pilot episode of Hannibal. I had a great time, and I cannot wait to break the show down even more as we watch it. The more Will Graham breaks down, the more we're gonna break down this show. So do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me your favorite part about season 1, episode 1, and why it's hot Will Graham. So yeah, I will see you guys in a few weeks. I'm hoping to do this maybe monthly. We'll see how much time I have. But I had a great time, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye.